the employee who crashed a plane for revenge. PSA Flight 1771. What would drive a man to take the lives of 43 innocent people, including himself, in a single, horrifying act of revenge? On December 7, 1987, Pacific Southwest Airlines Flight 1771 departed Los Angeles International Airport at 4 p.m., bound for San Francisco. The flight was scheduled to be a routine 50-minute trip aboard a British Aerospace 146-200A jetliner, carrying 38 passengers and 5 crew members. Among the passengers was a man named David Burke, a recently fired employee of U.S. Air, the parent company of Pacific Southwest Airlines. Burke was not just another traveler. He was a man with a deadly plan, a plan that would shock the nation and forever change airline security. How could a routine flight transform into one of the most chilling tragedies in American aviation history? The aircraft climbed smoothly into the clear California sky. But what happened next would leave a permanent scar on the aviation community and the families of those on board. David Burke was a 35-year-old former U.S. Air employee, recently terminated for theft. His dismissal was a blow to his pride and livelihood. But what made this story different was the depth of his anger. A rage that would explode in the most horrific way imaginable. Burke's target was clear: Ray Thompson, his former supervisor, who was also on Flight 1771. Burke blamed Thompson for his firing and decided to exact revenge in the most extreme way possible. But how did Burke manage to bring a loaded firearm onto a commercial flight? In 1987, airport security was far less rigorous than today. Burke exploited a critical security loophole. Employees with access to secure areas were not subjected to the same screening as passengers. This tragic oversight allowed him to smuggle a loaded .357 Magnum revolver on board. Could this tragedy have been prevented if airport security had been stricter? What vulnerabilities did this event expose? The FBI's investigation later revealed that Burke had meticulously planned his attack, bringing a pistol and ammunition onto the plane with the intent to kill. At 4:16 p.m., while cruising at 22,000 feet over the rugged Santa Lucia Mountains, the calm of Flight 1771 was shattered. The cockpit radio crackled with an emergency transmission. Gunshots had been fired in the cabin. Captain Greg Lindemood's voice was tense but controlled. "We have an emergency. Gunfire in the cabin." Flight attendant Debbie Neeson-Neal, demonstrating remarkable courage, opened the cockpit door to assess the situation. Burke was waiting, cold, determined. "I am the problem," Burke said, brandishing his weapon. The cockpit voice recorder captured the terrifying sounds of gunfire and struggle. Burke shot Captain Lindemood, First Officer James Nunn, and several flight attendants. The plane was now under the control of a man driven by vengeance. What was going through the minds of the crew and passengers during those final moments? Could anyone have stopped Burke? The bravery of the crew in those moments is remembered as heroic. But they were powerless against a man who had already decided to end it all. With the flight crew incapacitated, the plane began an uncontrolled descent. It plummeted from 22,000 feet at nearly the speed of sound, approximately 770 miles per hour. The aircraft crashed into a rocky hillside near Cayucos, California, creating a crater less than 2 feet deep but 4 feet across. The impact was so violent that the plane disintegrated instantly, scattering wreckage and remains over a 10-acre area. Local resident Bill Hartzell described the scene. "There's airplane parts and body parts all over a 15-mile area. I don't know how anyone could have survived. All 43 people on board, passengers and crew, perished instantly. How could a plane traveling at such a velocity disintegrate so completely? What does this tell us about the forces involved in such disasters?" The crash site was a grim testament to the destructive power of high-speed impact and human rage. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, and FBI launched a joint investigation immediately. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder were recovered from the wreckage, providing crucial evidence. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the sequence of events: gunshots fired, crew incapacitated, and the plane's descent into the mountains. Investigators found parts of a .357 Magnum revolver in the debris, linking the weapon to the crime. Employee records identified David Burke as the perpetrator, and his motive was clear: revenge against Ray Thompson. The investigation exposed glaring flaws in airline security, particularly the failure to screen employees who had access to secure areas and aircraft. What lessons did this tragedy teach about insider threats and airport security? Could such an event happen again? The PSA Flight 1771 disaster was a wake-up call for the aviation industry and law enforcement agencies. The PSA Flight 1771 tragedy was the second-worst mass murder in California history and led to immediate and lasting reforms. The most significant change was the implementation of laws requiring immediate revocation of airline and airport employee credentials upon termination, resignation, or retirement. This measure aimed to prevent disgruntled employees from accessing secure airport areas or aircraft. Security protocols were tightened nationwide, requiring airline employees to undergo the same screening processes as passengers. Aviation security expert Dr. Lisa Thompson said, "PSA 1771 changed how we think about insider threats in aviation. It's not just about external dangers anymore. In today's world, where threats evolve constantly, how can organizations better detect and prevent insider risks?" The tragedy also highlighted the importance of addressing workplace grievances before they escalate into violence. Behind the statistics were real people. Families shattered, futures lost. Among the passengers was Sean Addington, remembered by friends and family as kind-hearted and full of life. Flight attendants like Debbie Neal showed courage and professionalism in the face of terror. Their stories remind us that every tragedy has a human face, and every victim deserves to be remembered. Memorials have been established to honor the lives lost, and annual remembrances keep their memories alive. How do we honor those lost in senseless acts of violence? What can their stories teach us about resilience and humanity? Remembering the victims is not just about mourning. It's about learning and growing from tragedy. PSA Flight 1771 remains a haunting reminder of how personal vendettas can spiral into mass tragedy. It challenges us to reflect on the fragility of safety, the importance of mental health awareness, and the consequences of workplace injustice. Could this happen again? The answer is complex. Yes, if warning signs are ignored. No, if we remain vigilant and proactive. In the skies above California, 43 lives were lost to one man's rage. Their story demands vigilance, compassion, and a commitment to safety, so that such a nightmare never repeats. What can we do as a society to prevent revenge-fueled violence? How can we balance security with empathy? The legacy of PSA Flight 1771 is a call to action, to protect, to remember, and to learn.